Yes, it's live.
Hey y'all, I'm James Wright, and if you can't tell, I'm a little bit rusty. It has been a while. We were on vacation for 2 weeks, and then Sarah had a surgery and was out for 2 weeks, and so it's been over a month since we've been regular live. So this is kind of fun. Yeah, we're going to be jumping right back into where we were with finishing off the joinery limit. We have one more joint to make. However, they glue up and finish up. We're going to make half of the joint this time because it's a two-step thing. Half of it is glue up, and then we're going to do the other half next time we get together, hopefully next week.
Can you check your mic real quick?
I have to come over here to check. But I don't have anything directly coming up to put onto the calendar, but if you go down in the description down below, you can see a list of upcoming events. Why is my mic not on all of a sudden? Let's see if this helps. Hey, I got sound.
Start over.
Take two. Yes, if you can't tell, it's been a little rusty because it's been a little while. Yeah, so I've got a, there are a few events coming up, but December is kind of the quiet month for most tool events. But we are actually starting up in January, I believe, is the first of the woodworking shows. I'm going to try and make it to the one in Milwaukee. Let's see, the next thing on my list, I'm going to be down at the Peach Meet in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm going to be at Workbench Con, and there's a few more coming up, so lots of things in the future. But if you want to see more, go to handtoolfinder.com, handtoolfinder.com, and I have a list of all the tool events. I think I have now 60-some tool events around the world. So yeah, there's an auction coming up next week, actually, in the UK. Yeah, lots of things happening. So tonight we're going to be making the mitered spline joint. Let's find out one of these old ones. This is one. Is this the one? No, this is the one I had 4 years ago. So I do one of these every 2 years ago. And everything was looking really good. All the joints are nice and tight and crisp until I got to the very end with the mitered spline joint. Can you zoom in on that, Mel? And so this is a fun one because it's kind of two different parts. So you have a simple mitered joint, but then a mitered joint by itself is not very strong. And so we're going to strengthen it by putting in a spline. I have my assistant here who's trying to do some of the camera work. You got it? Yeah. And so on this, you can see the simple miter joint here, but then there is a spline cut into it. So what we're going to do is put it together and glue it up, and the next time we're going to cut the spline and do all the smoothing on it. So this time we're cutting the miter and figuring out how all the spacing is, and then we're going to focus on that. We're going to do the clamp up on it, and so we're actually going to see how tight are our joints, how tight can we get all of this today. And the glue up is going to be the sticky point. Get it? The sticky point? You didn't even have to do a super chat for that one. Yes. So let's take this apart. And we have to actually make sure that when we take it apart, we have these in the right orientation because this one can very easily flip one way and be wrong. And if I put the miter on the wrong edge, everything's off. So before we start putting this together, lift the camera up higher so you can get more of a down angle on it and start setting up on where I'm at. I'm actually going to lay out on this. So I'm going to put the boards out on the bench and figure out where are they going to be intersecting. And then I'm going to put some temporary lines on here showing where my miters roughly are going to be. And so on here, I'm going to get a little bit tighter in there, something more like that. With those rough marks on there, that will let me make sure I'm going to be cutting it that way from this point. And this way there's less chance of mistake. I mean, there's always chance of mistake. But I've done several times where I cut the miter on the wrong side and I put them together and they don't want to go. So yeah, take your time with it. We're also going to pop this all apart. Don't break the dovetails. There we go. And these two are the ones we're going to need, so we'll set all the rest of that aside. Now, these are the exact length they're going to be. And so I'm going to cut one of them one way, I'm going to cut the other one the other way, and theoretically you should just be able to use a miter square or an unsquare and put it on there, line it up with the corner, and cut it. And so I'm going to do that on this first one here. Can you set it up now? And I'm going to put it right on this corner. And on this corner, what am I doing with that? Why do I have a pen in my hand? Because I was drawing those lines. So I'm going to put this on here. I'm going to put my knife right on that corner, nice and tight. Slide the miter square up against it, and light cut, heavy cut, or medium, and then really heavy, grinding it in. And then once that line is in, I'm going to grab my small square, and I'm going to put that up on here. Put this knife into that line, tie this back, and then theoretically, this going on here should connect the dots. So if I put this right into that knife line, slide this on here, and I draw a light line here, that should put me right on that corner. And oh, that's pretty. It's almost like it's supposed to do that. There you go. So there's my line all the way around on that one. On this one, I'm going to do this one a little bit differently. This one, I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to talk with English words. Grab a ruler here. And on this one, I'm going to say I don't have a miter square. I already have one of my points. It's this corner. I need to figure out where does it intersect on this side over here, which is really easy because I can bring this over here, and it is the thickness of this. And the nice thing about doing it this way is even if these two boards weren't the same thickness, this would work. As long as I mark one off of the other, that will give me an exact placement for where they intersect. And then I can grab this one, put that into that knife mark, slide it over, and cut. So I've got a mark here and a mark on that corner. Now I can put this into that knife line, put it over here, and I'm going to line this up right on that corner. This is a little more sketchy because there isn't quite as much to hold it in place. Hold that down. Oop, did I slide over here?
Don't you want it to be a little sketchy?
Knew there's a reason I married her. And very, very light. First pass is very, very light because you don't want to move that ruler around. Make sure everything's where I want it to be. Copacetic. Flip it over. Do the same thing on.
I haven't heard you say copacetic for a while.
What's that?
I said I haven't heard you say copacetic for a while.
Yeah, you should use that one at work. They already think you're crazy.
No, I don't need to say that for them to think I'm crazy.
You'd think in a room of higher educated nurses, the vocabulary would be slightly more. But.
No, because we always have to break it down so everybody else can understand.
Let's see, sash saw, cross-cut teeth, because we are cutting at 45 degrees. So are you ripping or cross-cutting? I prefer cross-cutting. Usually I take cross-cutting a good ways. Can you back up a little more? Focus on the end of this then. And I'm going to do it here in the vise, because a man without his vices is not as much fun. Set it on here, and I'm going to be putting my thumb on this, let the saw ride up against the side of the thumb there. Just going to lightly scratch it. Start right on that corner. And I'm just cutting back across that line. I've established the cut all the way across here, and now I'm going to start lowering this down and cutting into that line. Now I'm in the way here a little bit due to this particular one. So I'm just going to eyeball the line on this side until I've cut diagonally from one corner to the other. I'm going to stop, flip it over, and then we're going to do the same thing going from the other direction. And this way I'm always cutting in the line that I can see. Almost all the way across. back into the tip here. And now I'm going to start lowering it down and following along that corner. Once we're all the way down in that corner, now we have all these cuts around. Allows us to get pretty close. Any questions so far, babe?
Yeah, just a second. So
I'm going to do this one slightly different, like.
not necessarily related to the project. Are you ready for those?
Not yet.
Okay.
We will have time for a little bit of Q&A at the end of this one. So this one I'm going to set up vertically. Why? Because I want to try something different. I want to show something different. And I'm just going to pinch it in the corner of the vise. And this will give me this top line here. And I'm going to start with the saw at 90 degrees to the board, just a little bit below the line. Just scratch a light line across there. That little light line on there gives the saw a place to sit. And it makes it much easier to start the saw on the angle. And then go corner to corner. Actually, this one I'm just going to go straight down. Why? Because I trust my saw. You think that's a smart move? We'll find out. Close enough. Let's see, how smart of a move was it? It should be good. Now, I'm going to put them in here, and I want to clean them off. Back over to this one. So, grab a block plane. Doesn't have to be a fancy Lie-Nielsen. This is the only Lie-Nielsen plane I own. It took me 8 years to buy it. Really. So, I need to clean this up, and because I have those lines drawn on the side, I'm just going to plane it to those lines. Here, why don't you move over this way and get an angle over here. Showing a dynamic angle makes it a little bit better to see what's going on. I got this little leftover from the saw. Didn't get that last little tiny bit. So I'm just going to get rid of that. And then I got, let's see, I got a high spot here, and that one's just only going to need a pass or two. So let's just do that high spot. And my blade is sliding because it's not tight. Let's tighten this down. Let's back it up, taking a pretty heavy shaving. Helps to actually set up the plane. And that should be pretty close. Oh, no, a little more on the side. A lot more on the side, actually. I was a little farther off that line over here. I'm just going until I touch that line. And that should be just about it. If anything, leave a little bit extra. Let's see what we got here. That is not quite acceptable. I have a little bit of space over here. What does it look like from this side? Yep, same thing. So this face is a little bit wide, and sure enough, I'm still off that line. So, let's come back. And I'm going to start back here heavy, and by the time I get to the midway, I'm lifting out. Let's see what that gives me. There we go. It's done. Now I could grab a shooting board and pull it out and just be done. But there's something about this that's really enjoyable. Not quite sure what. So let's read it first. Just like a shaving or two. This side actually looks really close.
When you're like, read it first, it made me think like they're tarot cards or something.
What?
Palm reading, card reading,
Oh.
wood reading. What is the grain showing you?
Ooh. Okay, that's pretty. That's happy. I see great fortune in your future. Yes, that's pleasing. All right, so there's our 45s. So theoretically, that should go. So, lift up a higher so show the whole table so that we can put this all together and see all the mistakes that come. And I need to make sure I put these in the right order so that things actually come together. That one down in there. Did I do it in the right direction? So, did the corner come together? Come together right now. I think it did, but to know for sure, because one of the problems you'll have, especially on this one where there's so many different things coming together, is I'm looking at it right now and I'm looking at that miter and it's touching here and it's way up here. And so my thought is, oh, I should take it apart and take a little bit of material off there to bring that down. But it might be that this whole thing isn't quite square or locked together. So I'm going to take a couple clamps and I'm going to put them across the middle and clamp it down and squeeze it into place and let's see what it actually looks like. Oh, so I put this one on the right finger. Squeezed it down too much. There we go. One squeeze in that direction. Ooh, that made it even worse. Let's grab this one. Let's do another squeeze in this direction. Oh, it popped out of the slot. These clamps are a lot of fun, but they are not the most useful clamps in the world. Good parallel clamps are really nice, but they're not as much fun. Okay, now let's take a closer look at this. Can you zoom in on this corner? So, I want to see where I have gaps. Where can I take material? Where do I need to add material? And on this one, I am actually fairly tight right here, and it gets slightly bigger, and I've got, what about a 32nd of an inch here. Now that's something I could always fiddle with and fuzz. Let's see what it looks like on the other side. The other side, it's about the same. I want to see, do I have any gaps anywhere else? And actually, on this one, up here, I've got a gap on this shoulder. That lets me know this board isn't all the way up against it. And so what I can do is actually take a little bit of material off of this corner, and that will bring this in a bit more and match up that line. So I need to take off a little more material here. And let's actually mark it. To make sure I don't make a mistake. I want to take off a little material here. I don't mind putting a mark on the surface because I'm going to be planing it all smooth a little bit later. I'm going to take it apart. And this may seem like everything should work right off of the tool. It's not gonna. Don't expect it to. Life is all about putting it together and taking it apart and 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 putting it together and taking it apart. It's still not there. Cut it 5 times and it's still too long. Okay, let's see. And yeah, sure enough, I'm actually a little bit off the line here, which is odd because I'm right on my line on the side, but the line going across, I'm off of it a little bit. So, again, we're going to do that plane and lift out halfway through.
Just don't whack yourself in the head. That would be what I'd be afraid of.
And that should be about it. Let's see what that looks like. That is superior. Oh, that is superior for sure. That is pleasing. Really nice tight all the way across there.
All right, that's it. Life's over. No.
Yeah, zoom in on this, Mel. So, yeah, now this one, it's actually really nice and tight. And where I had a bit of a gap on this shoulder over here, that's now all tightened back up. So, I could clamp it all together just to make sure. But I'm pretty sure that's going to work. So, what we need to do now is we are going to glue this, and we are going to clamp it, and we are going to put in the drawbar tenon, and we are going to put in the pocket screw, and we're going to clamp it all up. And next time we come together, we're actually going to put the spline in and smooth it out. But this is one of those times where
That was the side.
we're going to be going into the clamp up.
Oh man,
And
I
so
hate
there's
getting
part
a
of me in
case
this
the
one,
clamp.
because this one has so many pieces here. I want to use a PVA on it because there's no reason for me to use epoxy, except for this has so many pieces, which means I'm probably going to run into some little issue with something being out of sequence. And in that case, I much prefer to use epoxy because the open time is so much longer. And I've got a whole other week until the next time I'm going to work on this. So I'm going to take this apart, but I'm making sure I keep all the pieces flat down and in the same orientation. Ow, there's my finger. Take that one out, and then I can take this one out, and then I can take this one out, and I can take those ones out. Now, I'm actually going to do some epoxy. Turn it around so that they can see this. And I use a medium hardener on this because it just gives me the time for it.
Okay, you need to switch
can you
it
get
on
3
the...
that.
There you go.
And I usually buy a 1 gallon kit of this once every 2, maybe 3 years. And then I'm going to grab a brush, drop everything on the floor. And we just do 2 pumps of each, which is probably a bit more than I need, but that's all I need. So let's mix this up. And when mixing epoxy, it's very important that when you think you are done, you're only halfway. Because the greatest problem that anyone has with epoxies is they didn't mix it enough.
Hey,
if
Mel.
it's not setting, you didn't mix it enough.
No. Oh, there you go. Okay, there you go. I was like, I don't see your face.
I get the question quite often of, I did this epoxy and it's been 2 days and it's still not hard. Well, first off, do you have a slow setting epoxy? Because those do exist. But most of the time it's, did you mix it for longer than you should mix it for? It's like, no, I mixed it for a minute. And that's not enough. Keep mixing it. Go clockwise, go counterclockwise, go across the pot. And the more you have, the more you should mix. It's just one of those things where it's never enough. Yeah, okay. There we go. Now, can you show in, Mel? We're just going to start putting this on. And I'm not going to worry about dripping out too much because we're going to be planing this surface off afterwards. That's why I love doing most of my actual, I will in a moment. I will do most of my actual finishing after glue up, and it'll give me a chance to actually scrape things in later too.
Are you trying to make it a tighter angle?
Well, no, I haven't flipped it over yet.
Okay, just making sure.
And one of the really nice things about epoxy is it is very, very good at end grain. It is PVAs are not that good at end grain. You put any amount of leverage on them and they will, they're not good. Whereas epoxy, it's still not great, but it's better. And there's one. Let's slide that together. Happiness. Hand me that board there. Now, make sure we keep these in order. This one was next.
Hey, Mel, can you... We're looking at the corner.
You're not seeing anything, Mel. Always make sure you're showing something, whether I'm showing it or not. Teaching the new videographer. Now, if you watch some of the videos, the regular build videos on Saturdays, you'll occasionally see her as she is doing more and more, and the first paid employee of Wood by Right.
Yeah, really. How'd that happen?
I pay you in kisses.
I demand a raise.
Okay, I kiss you more often.
No, I need Fiji.
I will kiss you 2 times a
I
week
need
now.
Fiji.
Fiji?
Fiji.
I will get you water.
Touche. Okay, I should have said Bali.
No, there's been a bunch of shorts, videos about UPS drivers complaining about people ordering Fiji water.
What?
Yeah, I've seen several different UPS drivers doing shorts and complaining about people ordering Fiji water because it's a pain to lug out.
Apparently you and I watch different things. Is she getting union scale?
Yeah, you don't want to see what's on her screen, and it's usually blood and gore, and she's smiling about it. There's that one, and then this one. This is the first one that gets 2 joints at once. Oh, no, wait, we got to do this one too. That one did get 2 joints at once. I just didn't do them. So we do need to put some glue on this joint. It is a butt joint, but we're still going to glue it. Okay, let's flip this over so I can get these. And this is the point where things start to get frustrating, especially if I'm using PVA, because these other joints over here have been together for a little while, and they're starting to be happy together. And I don't want them to be happy together yet because I still want a little bit of movement. Whereas with epoxy, I've still got another hour and a half of working time. And there's no rush at all. I think that's one of the reasons why I probably use epoxy more than PVA most of the time now.
Nah, that's why you channel your inner Bob Ross. No painting.
And I think a big part of it is I was building a Cozy Mark IV, which is a 4-seat airplane, but it's all epoxy and fiberglass. And so I got very, very comfortable using epoxies. And I've been enjoying working with them. So why not continue? Okay, there's that one. This one goes together. Just like that. All right, now I got to do 3 joints at once. I'm going to be high and a little bit. Any questions while I'm doing this? Anything I can talk about rather than explain? Or show?
I have questions, nothing related to the
That's
project.
fine.
Okay.
I got time now.
Idle Hands asks, question about hanging hammers and axes/hatchets. How the heck does beating the handle end make the head go up? I know it works, I just don't understand how.
It is inertia. The head stays put and the handle gets driven into the head. Because the head doesn't want to move when it's struck quickly. And so it goes together. And if you imagine it for a moment as in you're putting together a mortise and tenon, you can push on the tenon into the mortise, or you can push on the mortise into the tenon. They both work. And so when you're hammering on the handle to drive the head in, you're pushing the tenon into the mortise. And the inertia, the weight of the head, holds it in place so the head doesn't want to move. And even without something backing the head, there's enough inertia there to keep it from moving and actually provide some force going in. One of those fun little counterintuitive tricks. What's next?
Dr. Khan wanted to know, will we be seeing you at the Browns MWTCA meet in York, PA in January?
Unfortunately, no. I would like to go to that one. I haven't been to that one.
York's kind of by where we used to live.
Yes, it is not far. But I don't get to go to as many shows as I want because my wife gets lonely.
My only free time is weekends.
Yes.
You
During
can't be
the summer,
every weekend.
it's like 2 a month that I go to. But the rest of the time I try and limit it so I can do more family time then. Okay, now we squeeze it all together. There we go. Now let's do some clampy. Yeah, let's do some clampy. Oop.
So Dr. Khan wants to know, is this miter joint not getting a spline?
It will get a spline, but you put the spline in after you've glued it up. It makes it, you can put it in before you glue it up, but it's an absolute pain. And you get far better results if you can do it after the glue up. Now, before I actually go into the clamping, I'm going to grab a flat face chasing mallet and use this just to tap things down. Make sure everything is flush. And I'm going to put in that one pocket screw. Here, I gotta grab a bit behind you, Bill. And I'm gonna grab a yellow devil-possessed brace, blue devil-possessed brace this time. A different bit though. That one will not work. I need this one. Just because people can't see me doesn't mean you have to be dancing all the time, Melody. Okay. Now,
I was trying to figure out what you meant, devil possessed.
Nope, that bit is not long enough. Let me grab my extendo bit. Otherwise I will roach the head out, and that is not happy. Where's my extendo bit? Oh no! I'm in a glue up, and I have no extendo bit.
Well, it's a good thing you used epoxy.
Well, we're going to do this the old-fashioned way. And we're going to drive it with a driver. Use that to suck them down in nice and tight like. And then flip it over. We're going to put a clamp on in this direction. But I'm going to put it over to the side because we do have to put in a
Dowel.
dowel. Yes, there.
Oh, jeez.
Careful, babe. There are things around you.
I should be used. They're usually things by my head.
Okay, the other thing I have is that I have these half lap joints where things aren't perfectly lining up. And so in those cases, I am going to put on clamps this direction. Set that down here. And I'm going to squeeze together the half lap that way. And then I also want to put on that splined miter because I want to keep that together. Otherwise, those two pieces can go out of plane. But if I put a clamp on there, then that will keep them in plane. So we don't want them falling out mid-flight. And there's that one. Now, that is not enough clamps, because there is no such thing as enough clamps. I need to remember where I put that dowel that we made. I put it somewhere really cool and remembered I will put it here.
It's not the dowel we used in the living room?
No.
Okay.
No, it's one we made. Otherwise, I'll make another one. Excuse me, Mel. What questions we got while I'm hunting?
Nicholas Todd wants to know, is the use of a marking knife versus a marking gauge, the wheeled type, a personal preference, or is there a reason for one over the other?
If I'm using a marking gauge, I generally prefer to use a pin. For most things, I use the wheel or a knife when I'm going across the grain and I want to sever the fibers. But if I'm going with the grain, I prefer to use a pin gauge. I find it to just be a little bit more forgiving. It doesn't follow the grain quite as much as the wheel does. So, yeah. Okay, can you show this hole here? I'm going to put some glues on the dowel. Oh, you know what? I need to do something first. I didn't taper the end of this. Whenever you're doing a drawboard tenon, it's always best to taper the end of the dowel. Otherwise, it will sometimes just get hung up. It makes it easier to go in because the two holes that are going that is going through are out of alignment. So I'm just going to use a block plane. Quickly round that corner over a little bit. Here, show this.
She is. You gotta switch cameras.
Yep. And get that in there. That should be good. Just rounded the tip a little bit. And we're going to put some epoxy on that and drive it in. Just like that. Then fit it into place. Just like a square peg in a round hole. I want to go through until the taper is passed on the other side, like that. And now, I'm just going to go through and check the seams and see what is on and what is not. And I think we're pretty good. So, there. We're going to set this aside and come back next week and actually do the finish out and create the spline for it. There are, especially if you're working in power tools, it's sometimes easier to create a jig to cut the spline so you can do them all before you put it together. But with hand tools, it's difficult to do that. It's easier to create something that's all together and then cut it and fill the void. And so that's why I prefer to do it afterwards. But to each their own. So let's say we got a few minutes left. What questions we got?
Let's see. Tyler Bloom says, I'm looking to set up a hand tool shop in new space and curious how much distance you have between the tool wall and your bench.
I have about 5 feet or so, something like that. I like it. It's currently a little farther away than I normally like. I normally like it a little closer. I like it when I'm standing at the bench about 10 inches away or so to be able to reach my tools. So personally, I prefer about 4 foot. I would find that to be about perfect. I also have sometimes to bring the camera back here. So, but yeah, my main preference is that if I'm standing in one place, I want to be able to touch and reach most of the tools. Everything is within one step. And that's the big key takeaway. But yeah, I'd love to see your shop once you get up and going. It's always fun setting up a shop. Now, the biggest piece of advice I can give you, though, is don't obsess over how to set up the shop. Because you will set it up, and you will find out that it is wrong. And you should do it a different way. And how that actually is, you will never know until you put it together. And so don't worry about your first setup on it. Don't even worry about your second setup about it. You will learn things over time and find out where you like things to be. So, yeah. Experiment, have some fun, and don't worry about it too much. What's next?
Isaac wants to know, have you ever applied BLO with a spray bottle?
I have. I found it to be rather pointless. Because you don't, BLO is not a film finish. It doesn't sit on top. It's something that soaks into the wood. Now you can kind of treat it like a film finish if you put it on a really thin coat, and it usually ends up taking somewhere around 20 to 30 coats with a day to 2 days between every single coat. And you can build up a film finish. And in that case, there might be a way to do a really, really, really fine mist spray. Really fine mist spray. But most of the time, even then, you just wipe it on. Because you can get a much thinner coat wiping on than you can with spraying. But yeah, oils aren't a film, so they actually draw into the wood. Unless you have like an oil-based poly, which the poly sits on top, the oil goes all over the place. But I have put it in a spray bottle once, and I don't even remember what I did it for. I just remember I had a bottle with BLO in it. I can't remember what I used it for. Oh well. What's next?
Ryan wants to know, can you remind us what species of wood you're working on with the window?
White oak, of course. What else would I use? No, actually, this is my first one. No, that was white oak as well. The other one's cherry. My first one is cherry. The last one is white oak. But I'm using white oak for this one. So one of the nice things about this project, you can do anything you want. I probably wouldn't want to do it in pine because pine is actually surprisingly difficult. Pine is not a good wood for learning because it crushes so easy. You can squeeze things together, and if they're not where they should be, you can still force them into place and crush things down. You also need to have really, really sharp tools. Otherwise, you're just mashing the fibers in the pine. So usually something hard, at least something up to the hardness of like a poplar. So I'd probably want something a little harder for beginners. Poplar's a nice, easy wood. Cherry really is this it is this great butter zone that is fantastic for hand tools and very easy to work and simple wood. So cherry is a great practice wood, beginner wood. Unless you're like me and learn by making mistakes over and over and over again, then white oak is phenomenal because it's an incredibly difficult wood. What's next?
Timothy Mellon asked, did James actually need epoxy on the drawbore tenon? Isn't
Nope.
the drawboring enough to hold?
Yeah, that's one of the big key things for drawbores is that they're designed to be, they hold themselves together. So it is the glueless between those and tusked tenons. You can build furniture that has no glue at all, and they're great for that. So no, I did not need it on there, but I like it. If I'm going to glue the rest, I might as well glue that too. What's next?
Dennis Meko asked, have you gotten cut using a marking knife and holding it too close to the edge of the ruler?
I have not. It's not that I remembered. I honestly don't keep my marking knives that sharp. I know a lot of people make them crazy sharp. I actually, mine are, I can do that without problem. I just don't need them to be crazy sharp. So, yeah, see, it doesn't even have to, well, I guess kind of a little bit. But, yeah, I don't think I've ever cut it doing that. I mean, I'm always back a little ways, but haven't slipped that way. Not yet. What's next?
Ben Keller asked, do you have ideas for protecting tools in an unheated workshop in the winter?
Oh, yuck. Because every time you put the tools through a heat cycle, especially if there's any moisture, rust is an issue. And the big problem is they get cold, and then you come into the shop and start breathing, and all your condensation drops on them, and then they warm up, and then they rust, and it's bad. The biggest thing is have a regular oiling schedule, a regular schedule where you go at them and you cover them in rust protectant or an oil or a paste wax or a combination of the three. I don't need to do it much. I have a schedule that's about once a year where I go through all my tools and I make sure they're all oiled and they're all cleaned up. If I were in some place that was really, really moist or particularly an unair-conditioned space, I would probably have a schedule that would be once every 2 months or once every month, depending upon how bad the situation is. But yeah, regular oiling, regular maintenance, make it a schedule. That's really the big thing. So yeah, good luck. What's next?
Dennis Meko asked, can you coat BLO with a high gloss finish, and how long would you need between coats?
Sure. Yeah, with a BLO, you can go over it with a poly. You have to wait until the BLO cures, or is very, very close to cure, and you can actually hit it with a coat of poly on top of it. And then with that, you can get any gloss you want. And if you really want to, you can slowly build up the finish of BLO. coat after coat with like a day or two in between every coat. And after like 20 to 30 coats, you have a surface that you can actually polish and shine up. It's what a lot of gun stocks do, the really high-end ones that look really gorgeous. They're usually coat after coat after coat of poly. Sometimes they'll mix in other things to speed it up or have a different protectant in there, but yeah, it's fun. Boring. What's next?
Caught up on questions.
That's it. Okay, I think we'll wrap this up then. We'll be back next week where we will actually finish, hopefully we'll be back next week. Who knows what's going to happen. And we will finish that up. So stay tuned. We'll have some fun. I think I'll do it for now. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye.
Hey.
There you go.
Finish all the questions.